Okay, I think it's 5:30 and we had made a commitment to start just about now so that we can have a full several hours for discussion. My name is Murkowski. I represent you in Washington, D.C. I'm honored to represent you in Washington, D.C. And I am equally honored to be here tonight in your region to discuss an issue that as Alaskans I think we recognize is one of not only great importance from a sustenance perspective, but from a cultural perspective, truly an issue that defines us. And so I am in part two, if you will, of a commitment that I made at AFN last October, when I was asked if I would agree to hold a hearing in Washington, D.C. on the issue of subsistence. I agreed at that time and have made an agreement with the chairman of the Energy Committee, Senator Wyden, that we will have a hearing in Washington probably sometime September. But I recognize that a hearing in Washington is of limited access to most Alaskans. It's not right for me to ask you to travel 4,000 miles to come and make public comment on an issue that is as important as it is. So the approach that I took was to say, we will have the formal hearing back in Washington, D.C., but let's take the opportunity to have listening sessions in other parts of the state where Alaskans can come together to speak out in almost an open mic type of a forum and put your comments, your concerns, your issues on the table. Know that as we hear from one another this evening, your comments are being recorded by a court reporter. This will become part of, again, the legislative record for the Energy Committee when we take up the issue of subsistence. So this is not just an opportunity for me to hear you, but this is an opportunity for my colleagues on the Energy Committee to hear you on this issue. You might ask the question, well, why is this before the Energy Committee? It is the Energy Committee that has jurisdiction over ANILCA and over ANCSA. Senator Begich has indicated that he is looking to advance a hearing within the Indian Committee, the Indian Affairs Committee, within their jurisdiction. You all know we're dealing with some budget issues, and quite honestly, it's difficult to get funding from the committees to hold full field hearings in our states right now. So I'm hopeful that we will have other opportunities. We held our first listening session out in Bethel on I think it was the 8th. It was last month, about 3 weeks ago. Had several hundred people either in the room or listening to the proceedings that were streamed and also on the radio. But it was a good opportunity to hear from the residents of the YK Delta. And of course, most of the concerns were addressing the issue of fish and the availability of fish within their region. When the representatives at AFN asked for hearings in Alaska, I asked them for their input as to where we should hold them. And it was at their suggestion that we met in Bethel and then here within the Otna region for the second hearing. So the purpose of this evening, again, is to gather comments for the record. It is not for me to comment back and forth and engage in more of of a town hall type of a process where questions are asked of me and I respond. My interest here this evening is to hear from you. So this is your time. This is our record that is being created for the Energy Committee. We are being assisted this evening by a moderator, Chris Winters, and I will introduce her. She'll kind of explain how we will handle the process here to make sure that everyone who wishes to speak has an opportunity to speak. Should you not wish to speak but want to submit comments, the record will remain open and you can submit them either by hard copy, by paper, by email, and I'll give you the information at the conclusion here as to how you can submit to our website. But again, I will introduce Chris. I would also like to recognize Michelle Anderson, President and CEO of OTNA, who will also begin the evening with a welcome to each of you. So with that, if I can ask Chris to come up first and just kind of explain how the process will work this evening, and then we will hear from Michelle and move directly to the comments from those of you in the room. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome. I know we all greatly appreciate this opportunity to share with Senator Murkowski, and we would ask that you all try and keep your comments to 5 minutes. The session tonight, as she said, is being streamed live, so please be sure that your cell phones are turned off and that we're silent while people are commenting. We have an initial list that has been prepared for people to testify. So I will be calling people from this initial list, and you have options. You can comment from where you're sitting. We'll bring you the microphone. We also have a podium down here that you can comment from, or we invite our elders and anyone that'd like to comment to come sit here on stage. So we will get through everyone on the list as fast as we can this evening, and from there, we'll open it to comment from anyone else that's in the crowd that would like to speak. And it'll be a simple raise your hand and we'll call on the next person. So, any questions? Okay, I'd like to hand the microphone over to Michelle Anderson and we'll get started.
Good evening. I wish to extend my welcome to Senator Lisa Murkowski and her staff. Thank you for coming to the OTNA region and listening to me and others as we speak to the importance of subsistence to us. My name is Michelle Anderson. My grandparents are the late Markle and Eileen Ewan. My parents are Larry and the late Louise Netter. I am Ujishu clan. An original shareholder, I am also the president of OTNA Incorporated, one of the 13 regional corporations established under the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act. I want to recognize and thank my elders, and I also want to put a special recognition out there for our second traditional chief, Fred Ewan, who is also with us tonight, my fellow tribal members, and our neighbors here in the OTNA region, as well as our friends who have come from different regions to be with us tonight. Thank you for getting us to this point. We're refusing to stop practicing our traditional ways, for raising our families on traditional foods, and for insisting that we should always be able to feed our families as we were taught. My parents raised my sisters and me on traditional foods, including moose and salmon. I remember my grandmother hunting and putting away fish for the winter. Growing up in this area, I understand the harsh economic and social conditions that OTNA people live with. We are the only Angster region whose villages are all along the road system. Oftentimes, we are the most isolated from immediate public safety and medical assistance and amenities that other Alaskans and Americans take for granted. We pay some of the highest costs in Alaska for heating, housing, and Western foods. As many of us know, eating traditional foods is healthier and more nutritional alternative to purchasing expensive and unhealthy foods at the grocery store. OTNA's vision reads, our culture unites us, our land sustains us, our people are prosperous. When the board was asked to create a vision statement, they were asked to imagine what they wanted to see for our people 100 years from now. This vision guides our business decisions. The vision of our people 40 years ago was that our land would sustain us. Ahtna's land selections under ANCSA are based on traditional hunting and fishing use areas. Our earlier leaders could not have imagined that their children and descendants would one day spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on court battles, and that our people will have to regularly attend state and federal meetings to plead for enough subsistence resources to feed our families. They could not have foreseen that in 2007, our people would testify before a state board of game to prove our traditional practices with regard to hunting, so we could establish for the record that we are a community hunt group. As one of my senior board members said in 2012, we have to go to court in order to feed ourselves. There's something terribly wrong about that statement. As you will hear from those who will speak in the next several hours, the issue of protecting our traditional hunting and fishing practices has been a long, offensive, emotional, and costly battle. We have heard plenty of broken promises, and sometimes there have been sincere efforts to reach a fair compromise with the state. Respected elders and tribal members have regularly testified at policy meetings and even endured racist comments. With each meeting, we feel and hear that our unique political status as Alaska Natives means nothing in the state. There is this perception, perpetuated by the state's constitution, that Alaska's resources belong to all Alaskans. There is absolutely no recognition of Alaska Native subsistence hunting and fishing rights in state regulations, just as there are no rural subsistence rights. I will never forget being a newly elected Ahtna board member and being in Juneau for the state's first special session on subsistence. An urban legislator, angry at being called back to work during the summer to deal with a Native issue, came storming into the lobby of the Baranoff Hotel and yelled at us. He cracked a bullwhip on a table and said, "Before I leave here, I'm going to whip you people into shape." He then turned on his heel and stopped out of the hotel. This awful, negative, racist attitude is still alive and well in this state. There are many in Alaska that do not want the federal government to step in and rectify the subsistence issue. They want to keep the Native issues quiet and under the carpet. And for 40 years, our struggle has been quiet outside of Alaska. It's a miracle that this listening session is happening here in Glennallen. On behalf of those I serve, I respectfully ask for your support in Ahtna's request to create a wildlife co-management system on Ahtna's former traditional lands, which today includes state, federal, and Ahtna-owned lands. In Alaska, the federal government defers to the state of Alaska regarding wildlife and fish management. Alaska Natives and rural Alaskans are trapped in a federal-state bureaucratic back and forth. Since the passage of ANCSA, Alaska Natives have been trained and regulated into an unnatural traditional food gathering existence. We know that each year the state or federal hunting and regulations and fishing regulations can and do change. There is no consistency. Even I, a younger original shareholder, have seen plenty of mean-spirited politics and greater economic gain to those who make their living off of guiding or sport hunting and fishing. Subsistence never has been the priority in Alaska's wildlife resource allocation statewide. When I became the Ahtna president, my elders instructed me to find a way to permanently protect and provide for our traditional hunting and fishing needs. Ahtna has tried every state avenue. We have been through state courts, and we have seen many failed attempts at addressing the inequity in the state legislative process. We have exhausted all state remedies. We believe that 40 years of trying is long enough. We can't afford to allow ongoing erosion of our culture. We can't continue to allow our unique political status as tribes be dismissed as if it is meaningless. To allow this injustice to continue only confuses our children. They should not feel nor be told that their political status as Alaska Natives means nothing. Our earlier leaders fought too hard for our land claims to have our political status mean nothing. That is why Ahtna is pursuing co-management legislation which would allow the Ahtna people to participate equally with our state and federal counterparts in the responsible management of wildlife resources. For co-management to work, Ahtna will need access to state and federal lands. Ahtna's proposed wildlife management solution involves ensuring that Ahtna tribal members, regardless of residency, can return to Ahtna's traditional territory and engage in our customary and traditional hunting practices. We are one people, united in our culture, way of life, and tribal identification. We all need this protection. We were raised eating the same foods. We were all taught the same culture. Living in Anchorage doesn't make one of our tribal members less native than those living in our villages. Ahtna's co-management solution would authorize our tribal conservation district, which we've already established, to manage wildlife, hunting, trapping, and conservation on the lands Ahtna is entitled to under ANCSA. If you take a moment to look at the other 48 contiguous states, it is almost beyond comprehension that the state of Alaska is authorized to manage Ahtna's hunting on Ahtna's own lands. No other tribe or native peoples that we know of outside of Alaska are under such a restrictive and demeaning situation. It is a matter of simple fairness and justice to fulfill the promises of ANCSA that Ahtna have wildlife management jurisdiction on its lands. Another part of Ahtna's solution is to authorize co-management on all lands within Ahtna's traditional territory, which is shown by a map on display in the room right behind you. This would get rid of the ineffective, expensive system of bifurcated state and federal management in Alaska and provide the state a means to regain some wildlife management on federal lands. It is our belief that a wildlife co-management system would save federal funds. We know for a fact that co-management exists in other states in which there are a large tribal population. In the state of Montana, the Salish Kootenai people entered into a cooperative management agreement with the state of Montana, and they collaboratively make and enforce management decisions. They have shared hunting and fishing regulations. The state of Montana works so well with this tribe that the tribe is also cross-deputized to patrol and enforce trespass laws on state lands that border tribal lands. Can you imagine the huge financial savings for the state of Montana? More importantly, this is a real-time example of collaboration between a state and a tribe. I'm sharing this model so you understand that we know what we're proposing is not a new concept. Other states are doing what we suggest, so we know it can work. Ahtna is prepared to take on wildlife management. Ahtna has dedicated staff and financial resources for our tribal conservation district. The principles of the program would allow us to protect and enhance moose habitat in order to increase moose numbers, which are very low today. In our culture, we were raised never to take more wildlife than we need or can use. Our culture naturally mixes strong conservation tendencies with respect for the animals and the sustenance they provide to our bodies. We would, It would be indeed or go against our cultural principles for us to hunt a species out of existence. We would be happy to share what our elders were taught as they learned to understand animal patterns and growth and migration trends. In other countries, and even in some of our own states, there is a growing appreciation for traditional knowledge with regard to wildlife and fish management. Ahtna is a unified region. 7 of our 8 villages merged with the regional corporation in 1980. Naturally practical, the Ahtna people didn't see a need to have 9 separate and duplicative professional corporations to manage our land and resources. Our corporate leaders and tribes made a decision to unify and manage our lands under one corporation. The Ahtna have a natural tendency to band together on issues that confront us. We work well together, we love and care for one another, we look out for one another. We do not compete with one another. When issues arise, we deal with the issues. I believe this is why my ancestors survived very hard living conditions and periods of food shortage before our villages settled into permanent communities. We understand that to survive, we must work together. Once Ahtna is allowed to participate as an equal partner in our wildlife management, we would work hard to develop a stronger, positive, working relationship with the state and feds. One area where I see the potential for greater collaboration is in the protection of our respective lands against unauthorized use and trespass. Most of Ahtna's lands are in the unorganized borough. Our ANCSA lands comprise an area the size of the state of Ohio. State and federal fish and wildlife officers are stretched pretty thin. Ahtna too has land protection officers. I can easily see a cost savings were we to think like our ancestors did, to be practical and make the best use of our limited resources. The nasty politics and anti-tribal sentiments spoken and practiced at the tops of agencies don't usually extend to the state and federal staffs who work in the trenches. When it comes down to it, unless you live and work in rural Alaska, you don't truly appreciate the beauty of a traditional hunting and fishing lifestyle until you have to pay local food prices to feed your family. Our neighbors understand the need for a more fair and respectful wildlife management system. You will notice that I've hardly mentioned fish. Our Copper River salmon need no introduction. We are no strangers to the lure of Alaska's natural river gold. Every summer, we must contend with angry, belligerent, disrespectful fishermen who believe it is their God-given right to take as much fish as they want from our rivers and to trespass on our lands to do so. While Otna's wildlife co-management proposal does not touch on fish, we do have concerns about our salmon stocks and fishing opportunities, our rights to access and protection of our traditional waters. Otna supports the efforts of ABCP, TCC, and others to establish intertribal fish commissions to address some of these issues. Here again, other Western states have devised collaborative fish management commissions that see tribes as equal partners with their state and federal counterparts. It would be a huge step forward if Alaska were to do the same. Otna also strongly supports the position the Native American Rights Fund is taking in the Katie John litigation to protect fishing and hunting rights under Title VIII of ANILCA. Katie is a beloved and respected Otna elder and leader. In closing, I made a personal commitment to my elders and to future generations. I promised them that I would do everything possible to protect the hunting and fishing practices of a way of life elders were verbally promised 40 years ago, the way of life in which they were raised. The hope of my elders today is to know before they leave us that their children and grandchildren won't ever have to prove their nativeness, nor endure the indignity of proving their history of traditional hunting and fishing, as the Otna people did a few years ago when establishing our eligibility to participate in a state community hunt. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to provide my comments today. Thank you for being willing to hear directly from the Otna people. I hope you leave here knowing that we have tried to work with the state's attempt to provide subsistence opportunity. It's simply not working for us. Otna has a solution we wish to implement that includes wildlife management on our own lands. We respectfully request your help and ask that you introduce federal legislation on our behalf. Shanann.
Thank you, Michelle. Would Roy Ewan like to come up and testify next?
I think I'm more comfortable up here. Good evening. Welcome to the traditional homeland of the Otna people, Senator Murkowski. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to testify. My name is Roy Ewan, born and raised in Alaska. I'm former president, CEO of Otna Incorporated, a shareholder, now retired. I am one of 13 board members elected to serve the Otna people, and I reside in the native village of Volcano. In this brief statement, I want to know that my involvement with subsistence issue has been lifelong. As a matter of information, it should also be understood that I have served in numerous Alaska Native organizations in different capacities as well. I was part of the land claim from the very beginning. I represented my people on the Alaska Federation of Native Board during the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act process. My recollection of how the subsistence was dealt with during that time is pretty straightforward. congressional delegation assured many of us that had concerns at the time that the state of Alaska would take care of subsistence so that we can continue our way of life. That was a verbal promise as young Native leaders. We trusted what we were told and have been disappointed ever since. The state of Alaska did pass legislation that provided for rural preference in time of shortage of fish and wildlife. This legislation was later found to be unconstitutional in court. And then the legislature did attempt to amend the state of Alaska Constitution so that subsistence issue would be dealt with. But much to the dismay of many here in Alaska, this failed to pass. And speaking of the Alaska State Constitution, I don't think many in Congress know that at the writing of that document, few of any Alaska Natives were represented. We know with certainty that the Alaska people were not represented. In an effort to continue our traditional food gathering, we've tried to work with the state of Alaska to make this happen, but we met with resistance in one form or another. Other often people will share how personally upsetting this has been to try to provide traditional foods on a consistent basis to our families. The rules change year to year. There are different rules depending on whose land you're hunting, be it state or federal. I just want to share how frustrating seeking subsistence hunting solution has been for the Alton people. It has been an expensive and time-consuming effort. Today, subsistence protection is Alton's top priority. It is a priority that is shared by our shareholders. Let me close by saying I appreciate that you're holding the listening session on subsistence and that you're doing it here in our region. I am pleased that you are here today and can hear from the Alton people. Thank you, Senator Murkowski, for your time and your interest in learning more about the unique hunting and fishing challenges of the Alton people. I respectfully ask for your support on this very important issue to our people. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Revon. I would ask next that Nicholas Jackson please come forward. After you're finished speaking, if you'd like to leave a written copy of your comments here for us, we can make sure that the full text is in the record as well. Welcome.
Thank you for this opportunity for testifying on behalf of Senator Murkowski. I thank you for you and your staff to come out and hear us. My name is Nicholas Jackson. I'm from the Cochana village. I'm a Musician clan, a Caribou clan. I am also chairman for the Otney Ink Board. I would like to thank you and your staff who have come to our region. Also thank you for this opportunity to speak with this very important issue of subsistence hunting and fishing. It is our way of living. I lived here all my life, except for military time for a couple of years. And I was born and raised in Copper Center, which is only about 15 miles down the road. Lived there, and my father was subsistence user. He lived off the land. He hunted, he trapped, and that's how he made a living there. So I learned a lot from him, and that's how I was raised. So I just, I can try to continue my way of living subsistently. I moved to Cochana in 1968, where I currently reside now. And I previously served on the Nebraska Game Board for 2 terms, that's 85 to 1990. I also worked for Fish and Game for 10 years, so I have good knowledge of Fish and Game out here you know, in our region we have 8 villages. They are all on rope system. And during the hunting season, we are impacted by urban hunters. Last year was the worst I seen it, that there was more hunters than I ever seen that hunted in our area. There's places where we go back in South Creek, that show you later on the map, you can see. It's a place where hardly any hunters go. There's only about 4 or 5 families that go on. And one of my board members and I used to go out there. This year there were more people than I seen back there. I know my partner didn't get his moose last year, but fortunately I got one. But it's just getting worse every year, it seems like. You know, the Nelsina herd is really popular hunt since it's accessible by rope. And, you know, where they can drive from Anchorage half a day and go hunting out there. And that's where the impact comes from Anchorage and Matsu and Burbank. So our people have lots of competition, you know, for putting food on the table for their family. You know, any of their costs is when, as someone already said, son, but I just want to illustrate one little point here where, you know, my fuel tank is 300 gallons. It takes a little over $1,300 to fill that thing up. And I use about 150 gallons to 200 a month. And so a lot of our people are on fixed income. There's a lot of elders that need wildlife for their subsistence use. You know, we go to game board and try to make a regulation, trying to help the people out there, you know. Getting back to 1992 when Kludik, one of the corporations went and took the state to court because they didn't give reasonable opportunity for hunting when they only had 7 days with restriction of 50 inch or more or with 3 pro time. And as that was going on, the other villages went and joined it, the other 7 villages joined that Kludik case, and that's where the Tier 2 started. Tier 2 is an application that you put in every year, and a lot of the questions in there, they go point system, and it seems like just that the older people got it. The younger people who really want to get out there didn't get it because of the age limit. And the first 3 years it worked good, but then after that, everybody else in the whole state, you know, took some of them call it virus contest, you know, because not one of them applications. So, and we tried to change it back in 2009, and we went to community harvest and talking about Unit 13 on community harvest worked good the first year. We had 100 moose that was quoted, that was assigned to this region, and a lot of them got their moose that year. Then the following year, it got taken to court, and so they won't give us a harvestment. And what happened was that when they took it to court, it was 58 for 3 blow time. So that's trophy hunting, and we don't trophy hunt, you know, like last year, they cut it down to 70 moose quota, and have a telephone system where you call in and see which units, sub-units are open, and we went back, my partner and I went back to try to get a moose for him, and when we got out there, we found out it was closed. They closed it off that day. So I was joking around until we became a trophy hunter right after, without knowing it out there. So there's a lot of little stories that you're going to hear from others in the I don't want to cover it, but I'm going to get them to say, no, but I want to, we need help some way to continue subsistence use, and we're looking forward to you for this. I just could leave it at that, and I want to thank you again for coming to our region. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So next on our list is Karen Linnell. Would you like us to bring you a microphone, or would you like to come down? Good evening.
Senator Murkowski, welcome. I truly appreciate your coming to out in the region to hear our concerns on our subsistence and wildlife management. I say subsistence because that's the term that's used, but what we're truly talking about is our way of life. This is how we live, the food that sustains us, whether we live here out in the rural area or whether they live in the city. There hasn't been a time that we haven't eaten. I was born and raised in Anchorage, and all my life I've eaten food from this area because this is where my dad is from. So when we talk about this stuff, it's more than just putting food on the table too. It's who we are. I'm the chair of the board for the Copper River Otna Intertribal Resource Conservation District, otherwise known as CRITTR. And I want to let you know that we're ready to manage our resources through traditional resource stewardship. CRITTR was formed in 2011 after many years of discussion, planning to conserve, manage, and develop the fish and wildlife and plant resources of the Otna region according to traditional standards. We like to think of the Copper River Otna Intertribal Resource Conservation District as a partnership between the tribes and the ANCSA corporations. The tribes have the authority and the corporations have the land. The tribes who are members authorize through resolution for CRITTR to work with the tribes, the landowners, the state and federal agencies on specific functions. CRITTR may be the only intertribal resource conservation district in the country and is certainly the only one in Alaska. This can be a very useful organization for coordinating complex issues and take on co-management using traditional ecological knowledge. We believe that through working together, unified management of the resources will be best meet the needs of all the people. The segregation and fighting over particular species or seasons is not working. By working together to manage our resources and not the people, we may reach an abundance of resources for everyone. Today you will hear much about the moose, caribou, salmon, but we live on much more than that. I've written a briefing report on the Tribal Conservation District, and I'll submit that with my written testimony. And again, thank you for coming. We really appreciate your concern and the effort you've made here to listen to our people. Thank you.
So just so everyone that would like to speak has an opportunity to do so, we've got a small timer that we're going to set, so please just listen for that sound as you're testifying so we can make sure to let as many people speak as we can. So next, I'd like to call Albert Fleury.
Welcome, Senator. My name is Albert Fleury. Most of the local people here know me as Palmer. It was a nickname I was given because I was born in Palmer, Alaska. But most all of you were born in Fish Camp in the tent. But anyway, I'm a board member. I've been for the last 6 years, and I've been involved with the C&T committee, which is customary and traditional use, since the beginning. I helped draft the proposals when we testified before the Board of Game, trying to establish this originally, to get away from the Tier 2 system they had before, which was very restrictive, especially to the Ottoman people. They didn't get the opportunity to hunt. The young people had no opportunity because it was based on number of years you hunted the area and the game. And it was a minimum of 20 years or so. Well, that didn't work, and they had a subsistence season at that time under Tier 2, but it was short, and it was like only 40 permits given. But it was open to all the people in Alaska could apply for that 40 permits. Well, Otna was lucky to get maybe 10 or 12 permits for moose. So under the C&T, we decided we'd go for a community hunt to try to increase the chances for Otna people to get moose and caribou. So we testified before the Board of Game and set a number of 100 any bull moose and 300 caribou, which wasn't unreasonable. It wasn't an excessive amount for 8 villages. And Unit 13 is divided up into 5 subunits. So what they did was, each subunit, they assigned a certain number of moose. Maybe 10 on this unit, 5 in this unit, 6 over here, to try to keep from over-harvesting any one area. Well, that worked great. We were the first year that the Board of Game allowed us to have this community hunt. Otna administered the hunt. We had hunt coordinators here in the Otna office. So all of our shareholders that applied for permits to hunt moose and caribou went through Otna. They knew who they were. There was a lot of elders and widows that couldn't hunt, had no one to hunt for them. So we had proxy hunters. And a proxy hunter could hunt for not only themselves, but for additional shareholders, the elders and widows and stuff. So we had several proxy hunters that first time. And the urban hunters looked at us and commented that we were like market hunters. We were being paid to get all these moose and caribou, which was far from any truth to that at all. We were doing it for our people to share, to help, with which we always do. So we were not there to be a single hunter to get 10 moose or 10 caribou. We were there as the next year, 2010, 2011, the Board of Game came into the state of Alaska's demands that they eliminate this Otna community hunt and open it to everyone in the state. They become subsistence hunters and were eligible for community hunt if they had 25 or more people sign up as a community. They were eligible to hunt the same allotted moose. They reduced to 70 in 2010, and we agreed. We said, okay, if it's necessary, we will accept that reduction of 30 moose. But the state didn't tell us at that time that they had opened this up to all Alaskans to apply for subsistence community hunt for the very same amount of moose and caribou that was allotted to Otna. So we were in immediate competition with all these different groups. Today there's 49 groups, if you can imagine. And they are not Otna people. They're not even from the region. They come from all over the state, claiming to be subsistence community hunters. And that's, in 2012 was the first year I did not get any moose or caribou, because I didn't see any that I could shoot. Every place that I went, and I went everywhere, there were urban hunters by the hundreds already there ahead of me. And the subsistence groups that had signed up was already in these subunits, and they got their quota, some as soon as the first 3 days, and most by the first and second week of the season. So that meant those were closed to us Otna hunters. If we wanted to hunt there, we'd have to hunt under the general hunting term, which is 4 brow tines, 50-inch plus moose. And that is ridiculous as our people are testifying. The game just isn't there anymore. But we've never been trophy hunters. We've always been conservative in our gathering of game and fish. We've never used it as a means to be a trophy hunter. And when there was excess like caribou, we've got, the last year the state was saying they have to harvest more of our Unit 13 caribou, Nelchina herd, because it's grown beyond the capacity that the land will sustain. We asked for 1 additional more caribou for our household because caribou is a small animal. Your average caribou, you might get 125 to 150 pounds of meat off of. It's not like a moose where you can, if you're lucky, you get a good 1,000 pound or better moose. But no, did they give us an additional 1 caribou? No, they issued more permits for urban hunters. Yeah. And we found out that these allocated 100 moose cut down to 70 because some of the biologists said they had friends that could get way back out there where Otna would never go. They can get that any bull. They made a special season for them, for that, just that purpose. But Otna has always been, when we testify at Board of Game meetings, we've been cordial, we've been honest with them, we never raised our voice, we never used derogatory statements, and we never demanded. We've always tried to be fair, we tried to give our views and the reasons for our wants for subsistence, because this last year, Otna people got 12 moose, if you can imagine. The caribou, they got maybe 100. Who got all the rest of them? Those groups that signed up as community hunters that were not popular people, don't live in the region. And the state is the one that pushed this upon us. The Board of Game, we had a lot of them that would accept Bachner's proposal to have this community hunt. The amount that we asked for in the season from August 10th to September 20th, we had reasons for that, asking for that season. Because we know when the game is the most nutritious and edible. Caribou especially, you cannot hunt later in the season because they go into the rut and the meat is no good. They have glands in the body that taints the meat and it doesn't come out for 2 or 3 months after the rut's over. Well, for the average hunter that's from the cities, they hunt moose and caribou when they are in the full rut because it's easy for them to get close to the game. The game are no longer cautious, and they can shoot the trophies. That's what they're primarily after. It's not the meat that they want. It's the trophy. And the reason we ask for any bull, we have elders here that have been cited prior because they shot any bull undersized. They were cited by Fish and Game for shooting undersized moose. Well, other people don't look for moose with big horns. They look for moose for the meat. And a bull is a bull. If a big one should come along, that's fine. That's just a bonus. But we don't traditionally go out and look for them. So we cordially invite you to support us on this. We would like to see some co-management with the state and federal to work these and iron out some of these problems. Because we have harmed no one by having 100 moose and 300 caribou taken out of all of the herds that moose and caribou that go through Unit 13, and the urban hunters that come in and hunt. We allowed them without too much protest, other than when they step on our toes like this. We didn't deny them anything. And taking that small amount and quota surely doesn't hurt them. They're not there for the meat primarily. They get all the meat and fish they want down in cars or wherever else. They prefer that. And a lot of this stuff that we have to abide by is not what they have to abide by. You know, we've been over backwards to please the Board of Game and the state with their rules and regulations. And that was one sore spot under the community hunt that they set up for any 25 or more people. They didn't have to live by the same rules that Bachner does. We have to bring out almost a complete animal.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm an elder. I testify on a very important issue, and I do it for a lot of these people that can't testify. You know, but I appreciate Senator Murkowski's listening to us, and she understands our needs. And but that concludes my testimony, and I appreciate your time.
So at this time, is there somebody from the audience who maybe did not get on our list that would like to testify for 5 minutes? Like to raise your hand? Okay. So we'll bring the microphone to you, and that way we can save some time. So I heard a voice up here. Can you raise your hand, please, and then state your name? Okay.
Excuse me, welcome to our community. My name is Don Burrell. I'm a lifelong Alaskan. I've been on the local Fish and Game Committee for over 30 years and have been on the Subsistence Resource Commission for 25 plus years. One of my main concerns, I think, is getting a chance to speak, is the Subsistence Resource Commissions were established under ANELCA for all of our newer parks. And I think we've really had a hard time being recognized, both with the throughout the federal system and that. We have brought up over the years a number of issues. Of course, our concerns are with the Wrangell St. Elias Park and Preserve. I think there's the preserve lands we can access with aircraft. Prior to ANELCA, aircraft, as far as what we consider the hard part, was the primary means of access. Currently, since 1985, the Park Service has decided that you cannot land in the preserve land and then walk into the park. So in other words, we have the Copper River, which is basically 2 miles to the east of us, and is the Park Service boundaries. It really limits during the September, late August, September time to access where most of our game animals are. There's been a lot of new issues brought up lately. The use of small engines, and this goes into park plants, not preserves, but the use of such as chainsaws, ice augers. A lot of these items are the Park Service currently, and has in the past, has let slide. It's just been the last year or two, or a few years, that it's become an issue. We have had a few issues, and we've written letters to both the governor and the secretary about training for our park rangers. You know, there was an issue there at Eagle. We've had a few issues here, nothing quite like that, but one of our Subsistence Resource members had a problem with picking up rocks on private property, and the Park Service basically got into an argument with her and gave her a hard time. There was, my understanding, some folks from Northway on the Nevada Road doing something as simple as picking up rocks for steam bat, and they got into an issue with the ranger. We have a real issue that's growing with our trail systems. Most of our trails here in the basin, myself, a long-time trapper, were established by our trappers, maintained by our trappers. As these trails are being recorded and basically advertised, of course, trappers with trap trails and recreational skiers and snow machiners creates a problem, especially during the November, February period. The Park Service has been very good to this point about letting us leave our traps, our martin boxes in the area. A lot of us have 25 to 100 mile trap lines, and currently, basically in the park rig, you cannot leave stuff in those lands for a long time. They let it slide, luckily, but who knows, as our superintendent changes, you never know what their decisions will be. Folks work for years establishing, they have martin boxes, a lot of these traps at the end of the season are just hung up. I guess there's like to see a little more recognition of these resource commissions, because they serve all of these zone communities and all of our people from this park, from Yakutat clear through the Northway up in the Tanana country, and of course all of our local communities. Anyhow, I thank you for your time. Appreciate you being here in our community.
Thank you. From here forward, as you're testifying, when you get to the 1 minute mark, I'll hold my finger up and point to my watch. And then when we get to the 5 minute mark, I'll hold my hand up, and please wrap up your presentation. Just so everyone can have an opportunity tonight that would like to speak, to share with Senator Murkowski. So can we have one more hand from the audience, please? Okay. Thank you. Please state your name for the record before you testify.
Welcome to Atnapastan, our country of Copper River. Hello, my name is Faye Ewan. I come from the Ojibwe Caribou clan. My parents are the late Peter and Annie Ewan from Buchanan and Dry Creek, called the Subsistence Cup. I'm from the sovereign nation of the Atna region. My late parents are one of the Copper River Corps who fought for our rights to hunt and fish and hunt game on Copper River. The other Copper River Corps were Mr. and Mrs. Tony Jackson, Dennis Jack, and Mr. and Mrs. Cecilia Nancy George, and my late parents, Pete and Annie Ewan. My maternal and paternal family came from the Copper River, Old Man Lake, Delta Susitna Village. My family migrated to these vast lands you refer as Alaska from time immemorial, hunting, gathering, and fishing. Our elders are living biologists. They told us what would happen by the weather, the birds, the animals, and the plants. They knew what was happening. They taught us how to respect the land. Today we still recognize and exercise our traditional ways of fishing and hunting. We are forced to fish according to new rules that are against our traditional ways. In Gi, in our language, is our traditional law. We teach our young people, our young generation, these laws to be respectful to the animals and how to behave and have moral standards. The animals know how you treat them, so they come back. They believe in a matriarch system of Atna people. Atna women were the matriarch system. We had only one chief in our village. They migrated to fishing and hunting camps. After Alaska passed, we became citizens of Alaska by force. We were no longer natives, we were shareholders in one stroke of a pen. Federal board has no hearing on the status. The state of Alaska Fish and Game Board has been hostile towards the 2% harvest by subsistence use, who is mostly native people. Federal government has a fiduciary responsibility to uphold our rights to hunt and fish from time immemorial. We were never conquered or have surrendered or seized our rights by no law in the United States or Alaska. The Constitution of Alaska was drafted without the consent of our tribe, tribal government, or our people. I strongly believe in our inherent rights. One of our traditions is that when we hunt and fish, we share our food with everyone. You can't keep it to yourself. When you make potlucks, all your food goes out on the floor. That way you don't overfish or overhunt. One thing in our tradition, if you shoot something, you eat it. Late Governor Bill Egan and late Don Sullivan campaign speech made at the old Kutika Hall located in Copper Center said, to our people, our leaders, the natives will always have the right to hunt and fish forever before they pass the statehood law. We respect our land from time immemorial and support co-management. Atna is a role model to control and take our destiny. They can take care of the business part with the land and trespass. It will give us more control over what's happening on our land, the environmental, the trash, and everything that they leave behind. We hunt for potlucks and funerals from time immemorial. Our Atna tribe's traditional knowledge of our land and water has been handed down for generation to generation. Thank you for listening to my words. Please consider the co-management plan. Pay you on.
Next, I would like to invite Gloria Stickwan. If you could raise your hand, we'll bring you a microphone. Thank you.
Good evening, Senator Murkowski. My name is Gloria Stigwan. I have served on the South Central Regional Advisory Council 6 years. I have also served on the Rainbow St. Elias Subsistence Resource Commission 6.5 years. I am the administrator for the Otna Community Subsistence Hunt, which is a requirement for groups participating in the state hunt. I would like to speak about dual management in Game Management Unit 11, 12, and 13, and 2 other constant threats to the Otna way of life. There are inherent problems with dual management of the state and federal management systems that manage fishing and hunting on state and federal public lands and waters. In our region, Game Management Unit 11, 12, and 13, there are 5 federal agencies that own lands. The 5 federal agencies are the Bureau of Land Management, Glennallen National Park and Preserve, Rainbow St. Elias National Park and Preserve, Titland National Wildlife Refuge, and Chuggy Edge National Forest. There are state lands and other private lands in Game Management Unit 11, 12, and 13. And of course, there are lands owned by Otna under ANCSCA. The state has regulations, and the federal agencies have management plans in place which affects subsistence uses. One of the main hardships to local hunters is access using off-road vehicles to hunt with. ORVs have set weight restrictions upon under both management systems. Federal management allows ATVs only on established maintained trails or trails that are in good conditions. Snow machine is allowed only if there is 6 inches of snow covering the ground. These restrictions make it hard for hunters to haul out caribou and moose out of the field. In the Otna's traditional hunting and fishing territory, this dual management system creates havoc on our customary and traditional way of life. We, the Otna people, can either go to the Alaska Department of Fish and Game, Bureau of Land Management Office, Glennallen National Park and Preserve, and Rainbow St. Elias National Park and Preserve to get fishing and hunting permits to fish and hunt in Units 11, 12, and 13. The state system is managed with more restrictions since all Alaskans are considered subsistence users. Federal management under its rural system provides for more liberal and hunting season and harvest limits. State system management regulates sport and hunting fishing and subsistence hunting and fishing on state and private lands, sport hunting and on most federal but not parklands. However, it does apply to national preserve lands. Federal management system regulates subsistence hunting and fishing only on federal public lands and waters. Game Management Unit 13 is one of the most popular places in the state of Alaska to hunt for large game. In Game Management Unit 13, we have the option to hunt under Tier 1, Community Subsistence Hunt, Drawing, General Season, and a federal registration permit hunt. In Unit 13, we are allowed to take 1 caribou under the Community Subsistence Hunt or Tier 1. The hunting season dates are August 10th to September 20th, with a closure date from September 21st to October 20th, and a reopened hunting season date from October 21st to March 31st, if the season isn't closed by an emergency order. We can also choose to apply for 1 bull moose drawing permit by December 17th. The drawing permit is the same as the drawing permit hunting season is the same as the community subsistence hunt and the Tier 1 caribou hunt. We also have the option to hunt under federal registration permit. The federal caribou season dates are August 1 to September 30th and have the same closing and opening season as the state caribou season. In Unit 13, we can hunt for moose under the community subsistence hunt, general season and drawing permit, or with a federal registration permit. State hunts for the community subsistence hunt and drawing permit for bull moose and general season all have moose antler restrictions. The community subsistence hunt allows us to take up 70 Indian bull in the subunits of 13 and 11. When the 70 Indian bulls are taken, the community hunt subsistence hunt refers to a moose antler restricted hunt. Moose antler restricted hunts are 3 brow tine in Unit 11 or 4 brow tine in Unit 13, spike fork or 50-inch antlers. The community subsistence hunt season for moose in Unit 11 and 13 are August 10th to September 20th. In a portion of Unit 12 under the community subsistence hunt, there's a moose antler restriction and a hunting season from August 24th to August 28th, with a closure and reopening moose hunt from September 8th to September 17th.
Gloria, I'm sorry to have to interrupt you, but to get through everyone, we're at our 5-minute mark. And is it possible for us to get a copy of your written text to share with Senator Murkowski?
Can I just say one more point?
Please do, please.
I focus on moose and caribou in Unit 13 to explain how complicated dual management is in this area. We have to be cognizant of the lands we are hunting on, what species we are hunting for, what the season is for that species, whether bulls, cows, or both are open, and what methods and means to access hunting we are using to harvest that particular species on a given day. It is difficult for those who cannot read or write and Avant is their primary language. Just want to say that I hope that you will support our legislation that will be introduced on co-management. Thank you for coming to our region.
Next on the list is Linda Tyone. So I will turn my buzzer on all the time and I don't interrupt you.
Thank you and good evening. I would like to thank you and welcome you to Otna Country. My name is Linda Tyone. I'm from the Jishu clan. I was born in Glennallen and raised in Gakona. I currently reside in Copper Center. I would like to start my testimony by stating that we don't use the word subsistence in our meetings. We use the customary and traditional use, and that is our survival. I know for the fact that the state subsistence law is not working. And most of the time the Federal Subsistence Board copies the state regulations. There was a review of the Federal Subsistence Board, and they did some amendments to the review, but that hasn't fixed the problems that are statewide. Also, the state selected majority of their lands in the Otna region, so all of the lands around here are state selected. We have some federal lands that we could use to hunt on, but it's hard to access. And you'll be lucky to harvest a moose or a caribou on federal land. And they always use that against us, that we have this whole bunch of federal land to hunt on, but it's not, we don't have it. It's hard to access. You have to have big motorized vehicles to get to it or even to fly to it. I also want to talk about the state system for designating non-subsistence use areas. We have been threatened several times through the joint boards of Fish and Game to designate this area as a non-subsistence use area. And if it is designated as a non-subsistence use area, that would be a disaster for this whole area. We would not be able to hunt or fish like we used to do and still do, and so it is a threat. We feel threatened every day by some state regulation or federal regulation. We had a meeting of the joint boards and to designate this area as a non-subsistent use area, and we won the vote by one vote. It was that close for us losing our subsistence hunting and fishing rights. I know that the federal government has an obligation to Native people to provide hunting and fishing rights for our people. And so this is not just for today, it's for our future generations. For my grandchildren's children we're talking about. So, you know, we want to look out for everybody, for all of our future generations. And so I want my, you know, great-grandchildren to be able to hunt like my ancestors did 10,000 years ago. That's how long it's been documented that we've been using our hunting and traditional lands here. And, you know, people talk about not getting moose. Well, for Gakona village, there was only one moose harvested in our village. And that's not enough to feed our families. Maybe it lasted for a month or two. Also, the state uses the 8 criteria. It's a tool that they use to designate subsistence uses, but it's not being used. So that's a useless tool that they have created. And I urge you, Senator Stevens, to support Atna's proposed solution to these problems. The only long-term solution is for the Atna to be a partner in managing hunting, and that would be through co-management. For us to have authority to manage wildlife on our lands and our traditional hunting areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Can we pass the microphone to Noble Sherwood next, please?
Hello, Senator. My name is Noble Sherwood. I'm a Land Protection Officer for the Native Organization.
I'm sorry, sir. I apologize. I can't hear you.
I'm a Land Protection Officer. I cover the Chittenden area. I worked for Atna now for 3 years. I cover one of the largest personal fisheries in the state of Alaska.
I apologize. I really do want to capture your comments, sir.
There are 10,000 permits issued annually through the Department of Fish and Game for the Chittenden personal use net fishery. There are also many 17B easements and state-owned lands of the Wrangell St. West Park within my patrol area. Only about 10% of the visitors to Chittenden purchase land these permits on their back to Chittenden. The other 90% wait until we contacted them in person and they flat refuse to purchase them. There have been
Noble, can you just speak a little slower so
Yeah.
she can record it?
There have been many threats made from the building to shooting land protection officers in the area. Contacts are extremely hostile and our authority is not recognized. Our call is consumed. While people recreate and fish, many visitors are armed for protection against bears and other combinations. These two factors sometimes contribute to the dangers and the hostile encounters that we encounter with the visitors. Visitors feel as though they don't have to obey the laws or the rules in private lands or the 17B easements. There's no policing or enforcement by either state or federal agencies of the laws broken on the properties. Visitors knowingly trespass, poach, trap, and leave garbage on the lands. They destroy or disrupt trails across Atna lands. Atna has taken the policy to walk away from hostile confrontations. 2 years ago, a visitor was contacted. He threatened me with a knife, started throwing a knife around, and told me to get out of his face. He was allowed to leave the area. 2 years later, I ran into the same individual. We made contact. It took over 6 hours to have a state trooper show up on hand. The person was allowed to leave, go fishing, and leave the area. Atna took upon themselves to trespass him for life from the Chittenden area.
I think your microphone might be running out of battery.
Law enforcement doesn't get involved until there's a physical altercation. All law breaking on Atna lands is considered a civil dispute. The public knows that it's too expensive for Atna to civilly sue the thousands of cases of trespasses that occur annually. The
public also knows that there's little law enforcement in the area. Glennallen State Trooper Post covers 2,500 square miles with 6 troopers, 2 mature bush wildlife troopers. It has 4 full-time and 1 seasonal land protection officers covering 1.5 million acres. In 2011, I issued 143 trespass violations. In 2012, I issued 132 trespass violations. Most of these were thrown away. There's been no help with the law enforcement, either federal, to protect not only the Ottoman people and their lands, but also the people that use them. And we ask for the co-management of not only managing the game, but policing of the areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Noble. Good evening, Senator Murkowski. My name is Donna Renard Hicks. I'm of the Neltina clan. I come from high in the sky. I'm a tribal member of the native village of Plutica. I'm a member of the Frank Stickwan family. I'm the Deputy Director for Tribal and Community Service Department of Copper River Native Association. CRNA is a federally funded tribal organization to provide health, behavioral health, and social services to its beneficiaries. Parallel to these services, we also provide tribal support to our villages through workforce development, scholarship and training. We also provide support and preservation of our culture and traditional practices. CRNA partners with the Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium. Through our partnership, we together work towards a healthier people through tradition and customary way of life for all Alaska Natives. A nationwide campaign on the prevention of diabetes and cancer has received great emphasis among the American Indians and Alaska Natives. People, and here in the Otna region, the disparity rates of these diseases exceed the national percentile. Macrobiotic diet is encouraged by medical providers, which eliminates processed sugars, salts, carbohydrates that promote cancer growth and diabetes. Therefore, our customary diet is pertinent to our sustainability and our longevity. Therefore, I would like to invite you to read a book, Traditional Food Guide for Alaska Native Cancer Survivors, that was published by Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium Cancer Program. It was created by a statewide tribal collaboration and gathering of traditional knowledge of diet throughout the state. I have provided a copy with my testimony for your reading on nutrition and values of Alaska wild game. I have been fortunate to be raised in a culture that helps me maintain myself and my family connected to our lands, waters, spirituality of my indigenous, Otna, customary, and traditional way of life. I have raised my family with our customary diet, which is primarily moose, caribou, salmon, and small game. I have children who serve our country in the military and always have them calling me, asking me for their foods because they're hungry for it. No matter where our people go in life, their diet, traditional lessons learned, and belief go with them. It is who they are. Our diet is imperative for a balance of physical, mental, spiritual wellness for them. For many years I have witnessed Otna people have testified before the State Board of Game and have provided information on our indigenous ways and practices passed down for many thousands of years for our survival as a people. In my adult life, I have provided testimony also, only to find that some that sit on the Board of Game display a public show of disrespect for our indigenous people by making demeaning statements and stereotyping the Alaska Native people. The state of Alaska has record and materials that have been submitted at these hearings in statehood. We have proven our level of need, and subsistence law does not meet that level of need for our people's well-being. As Otna people, we are taught to know what we need, where we can get it, how to get it. without desecration of our natural resources. Therefore, I hope that you support us for our need to be the managers of our aboriginal lands, named places of hunting, trapping, and gathering of natural food supply. Thank you for your time, sitting with us, listening to what is the most important priority for our continuing existence.
Thank you, Ellen. I'd like to invite Roy Tansey Sr., and we'll bring you a microphone. Can you please raise your hand?
Yeah, good evening. So, my name is Roy J. Tansey from Cantwell, or Can't Get Well, if you will. I teach you clan. Thank you, Senator Murkowski, for the opportunity to present our cultures and very important subsistence issue. Our subsistent ways of life is not working well with the state of Alaska gaming program. What we need is a tribal co-management oversight for our subsistent use, for our survival in the field of competing with the overpopulation of people, four-wheelers, and access from the highway to our hunting areas. We are having to spend a lot of money on the gas to get moose to caribou, and then end up not even getting one last year. It is very important for our culture, for our survival, the way we have been brought up by our parents and elders. When I was a younger man, I could go out and hunt and teach my children how to hunt, camp, and be out. Now, with all the state and the federal regulation, it is almost impossible for children to take their children out to teach them to a traditional cultural way of hunting. We need assistance of Congress to get our subsistence back. You know, I'd like to just kind of close, with my own language, and then I'll give you what I really need. Senator, I'm not saying I to be shocked at Washington, D.C. Eagles Club, we shocked as about me. Need to assume that Eagles medical nurse is that in closing, we want to say this, in other words, got the words and stuff. There's the room, there's a name, it was about a few years ago. So, we're closing with that. What I was trying to say is, Senator, you're pretty high up in D.C. You got a lot of respect and said what I said. So, what I meant is, that we used to have duck, for meat and so forth, And the person, that can reach up there, and get some stuff, that it would be for breakfast or, dinner or something like that. Those are the people, that's big and tall, they're strong. And humble, you know, we are humble, you know, with this, our presence, you know, with presenting, you know, our case. You know. So we need your help, is what we're saying. Senior need means, you know, we like you very much. We love you. Senior.
Thank you so much. Next, I'd like to invite Marco Pete.
I got not much to say in that now. Our fishing thing, that's all I really worry about. You know, we used to have in 70-some years, I remember we fishing, maybe 80, maybe 4 now. We never had this kind of time all the time, meeting. Fishing is just in the river, you know. We are human beings. Here we have a fish meeting all the time. We never used to have it. But now there's too many people. I know what to do this and that. We had our own law over Indians. Chief says no. We're not, we fish the guys. Every day we want to know. There were just like white people. Be careful about animals. Be careful about everything. Since I was very born, I remember. And I think that today I don't like that too much of a fish. Every time we go to town, we had about fish. That's all. Well, they're the ones that clean the fish. We know what they're doing. They think we don't know what they do. They make the black socks. Maybe chilling fish that one time they get loaded up, put it in level 48. We never had that kind of stuff a long time ago, and then had boats and all that kind of put it there in 2 days to him Chandler in Seattle, sitting by the pound. That I don't like that. They hurting us too much. Enough is enough, you know. And they say they're going to lower down oil when we work for them. 35 cents maybe. Everybody tell them, you guys got to pay. What is today? $5 a gallon. Can't afford it. We pass it on. Other people out of work, no work. No, we can't afford those things. That's all I have a complaint about. And another one is a new one I complain about. Nobody worried about it today. When it starts happening, then it's too late to fight about it. You should sit in the river. We're going to flood it. We had a little meeting with people that goes around. We okay it or not. They pay us $50. And I don't want that thing to be flooded at the time. That is Indian hunting ground. And the animals go through that all the curves. And where the animals are going to go after the flooding. money, people are gonna starve. Us, we can starve, we can't use your meat from beef, stuff like that. No, we can't stand it. You see, a lot of people have been in the army. They starve from meat when they fish, when they come back home. That's all they eat for months and months, you know. That's how we are. We can't, let's see, let me tell you that if we take a beef away from these people, what are you going to be? You're going to starve for beef, aren't you? So that's the way it is. You bother us too much. You know, they want to go and out, we can't do nothing. The state want more money. That's what I'm going to, you know, everything turn around for money. Name or surplus. You don't find people for no reason sometimes. They ain't knowing having trouble. They can take them home, whatever they can do. We used to do that, you know, and not today. Police used to help us. If we get to town, we don't know anything. Now, just angry, you know, they don't want to help you. You just, well, where are you going? So they get in trouble, and then they should bad being thrown in there. It's not a place where people, good people go to jail. Or bad people, that's fine. They can go to jail because they're living for the trouble. But when they do that, I don't agree with them. 2%, I know. Because they find them too much. $1,000 by $1,000. And another thing, I don't care what they're doing about fishing, they shut it down. A long time ago, we didn't have that kind of trouble. We didn't have to wait 20 hours, which is all right, but sometimes we don't get no fish on it. Like last year, we didn't have any fish at all. That's 3 years. Now, we have a problem with Yukon River. You know, how to fish. And they kind of do the same thing here, maybe. I don't know. All the elder here that knows what we've been doing. But we didn't waste anything when we sit down and food. We use everything that we can use. Cook. That's the way we work. That's not a law, but we're doing it. Today it's too many people, and they have to have it all. Clean everything up. And first of all, you guys can have a meeting. I think all food elders better talk. Tell a story a long time ago what they did. Also, all the Indians trade from Glennallen, Fort Yukon, all the way down through Valley to Creek, all the way over and over, and every lake over here. That is in Argentina, out of that mountain going Indian hunting, and I see Indian trade are covered today. Why, we don't know. You didn't put it back on no more. I'd like to see Indian trade back there in the river, where the lake they used to trap muskrat and beaver. Trails is all gone. Why they didn't put it back on, I wouldn't know. That's really upset me. Because you put everything on the map, but the trail is gone, Indian trail. So I want that thing to be back onto map.
Thank you, Michael.
That's all I can say. Thank you.
Christine? Excuse me.
Hello, my name is Christopher Jean. I'm from the village of Gakona in Athabasca, name Gakona Rabbit River. 20 miles north of here, my village, I only said the name of the river there. I'm from the Hotishu clan, terrible people. This is the home of the Atna Athabascan people from years and years before me. The Atna people and I would like to welcome you to our humble home, as well as your staff. I sit on the Atna board for Gakona Village and serve on various committees, as well as the C&T committee, which stands for Customary and Traditional Use. It used to be Subsistence, changed it to include all residents of Alaska. To me, it doesn't mean subsistence anymore. The customary and traditional hunting is our way of life, survival for meat on the table. We have been going to court since the 70s when Fish and Game locked up fish reels in the Kulikat Copper Center. Plaintiffs have come up with all kinds of charges just to take away our hunt. They tried to change Unit 13 in non-subsistence area. The community hunt, we've been to court for this since we were the only community hunt participant to begin with, when we were allowed 100 moose and 300 caribou. Now there are over 49 groups. There was something like over 800 people that were hunting in this area last year. I hate to see how many there will be this year, since the group went from 1 to 49. The groups come from all over the state, even from Juneau. To me, it's just making a mockery of this hunt. With the hunt group names is one big mockery. There is so much trespassing going on. Where we used to walk out to hunt, we cannot do that anymore. You're liable to get shot. On the Denali Highway down there, the elder from Cantwell said he and his family went out to their traditional hunting camp. There were so many motorhomes there, almost 400 or more to be exact. In our ways, in our traditional ways, we share with the less fortunate single parents, and especially our elders. We have spent millions of dollars just to feed our families. If we have to go to court just to eat moose meat and fish, this money could have gone to the betterment of our tribal members. I'm not as old as some of our tribal members, but I've been here for over 60 years, and the changes to our hunting is so huge. It makes me wonder what happened to go to court to eat. I see my little grandkids jumping up and down when their dad got a moose. And all these little kids you ask them what they want to eat, they all say moose meat. I thought to myself, how can anybody do this to these little ones? Is it just greed or just for the moose horn? And The state subsistence hunt is not working. We would like for you to start legislation for our co-management on the lands. This is the only way we can put food on our table. And trophy hunting, that's all it is right now. We don't, like some of my Adna brothers said there, that we don't look for trophy. I remember a long time ago when I was growing up, when my dad used to get a moose, the horn, we would leave it. We didn't even bring it out. Now under the state regs, we want you to bring the horn out, at least cut it in half or something. But we don't even eat the horn. I'd like to thank you for coming tonight.
We'd like to move to Ernie Peters. Will you please raise your hand? Thank you.
Good evening, Senator Murkowski. My name is Ernie Peter. I'm on that Syquichin from Martin Village, Alaska, and serve as their first chief in tribal matters. I'm here to speak on behalf of tribal members who are unable to be here today. Our people are facing considerable challenge on all levels and around our traditional lands, which provides for families and community members who live directly on the land without the ability to harvest to meet our local needs. We will be forced to buy food in our village stores, which is very expensive in our village. This will make it hard on people who are already having a hard time paying their monthly bills. Our people for hundreds of years were steward of our lands, water and other resources around our villages. And it's like our claims to traditional lands, and we now have to harvest basic upon state and federal regulation are denying indigenous people their rights to survive their traditional food. Federal hunting regulation allows rural residents to hunt moose on federal lands from August 25, October 1st. Each year in the Yukon Flats region, where I'm from, State of Alaska allows hunting September 10th to September 20 each year on private and corporate land, where they provide enforcement in the same region. The schedule was acceptable years ago. Local hunters notice climate change are affecting animal behavior, and this raises concern about whether the state regulation is adequate to ensure that local residents are able to harvest. I believe it may time to consider whether regional and village corporation lands can be placed under federal management regulation to offer better hunting regulation to those areas that are hurt by conflicts between the federal and state agency. I would like to close by thanking our host, the Adna people, for inviting CATG to this hearing and to say that we support your effort to improve things for your people. Thank you very much.
Good evening. I'm going to go up there and sit. I'm just more comfortable there. If Nick can make it up there, I can. Welcome to Well, I'm Bob Henrich. I'm president of the Native Village of Eyak. It's in Cordova, and my father always told me you should be nice to people before you start beating them up. So our people have utilized the Copper River to feed their families for the past 10,000 years. And we stand with the people, our brothers and sisters up here. We are a Copper River tribe. And I hear the horror stories that go on up here. I know I would never put up with that myself, but I'd like to see co-management. I'd like to see it up here. I'd like to see it down in the Copper River Delta. If the Forest Service and the environmentalists had their way, they would run us off the river. And I tell everybody that the last people standing on that river are going to be tribal members. The rest of those people can go anywhere they want. We are not leaving. And we stand with the people, and I'll be brief because this is their show.
Making the trip to our region. So I would like to invite Heather Kendall Miller.
Good evening. Thank you. My name's Heather Kendall Miller, and I'm a senior staff attorney with the Native American Rights Fund. And let me begin by first thanking you for holding the Subsistence public meeting today in Glennallen to listen to the concerns of your constituents and the Otna people in particular who have lived in this region from time immemorial. As a Native American Rights Fund attorney, I have spent the better part of the last 20 years involved in the subsistence struggles of Alaska's Native peoples. In this capacity, I've had the great honor and privilege of representing the revered Otna elder, Katie John. Katie John is the elder of the last chief of Batulnitas. Batulnitas means roasted salmon place, and it is a historic Upper Otna village and fish camp, and it's located at the confluence of the Tenayata River and the Copper River within what is now the Wrangell St. Elias Park. Katie John owns a native allotment at Batulnitas. Batulnitas was occupied by the Upper Otna on a year-round basis until the mid-40s, when the villagers were relocated to Natasta so that their children could go to school. Batulnitas continued to remain an important summer fish camp. When Alaska became a state in 1958 and assumed management of Fish and Game in 1960, it closed down the subsistence fishery of Batulnitas and nearly all other traditional fishing sites in the Upper Copper River and its tributaries. Closure at Batulnitas to subsistence fishing ended its regular use as a fish camp. Nevertheless, Katie John and her other residents of Natasta Village in former Batulnitas returned regularly to visit grave sites and to experience the spiritual and cultural satisfaction derived from being present where they grew up and where their ancestors made their home. In 1984, Katie John submitted a proposal requesting that the Alaska State Board of Fisheries open Batulnitas to subsistence fishing. Their request was denied despite the fact that downstream users were permitted to take hundreds of thousands of salmon for sport and commercial uses. The Native American Rights Fund filed suit in 1985 under Title 8 of ANILCA to compel the state to reopen the historic Batulnitas fishery. Although the state subsequently adopted regulations providing for limited fishery in 1990, the federal district court set aside this regulation too as too restrictive. Before the state board could react, the Alaska Supreme Court's McDowell case struck down the state's rural priority as unconstitutional. As a result of the McDowell case, fish and game management in Alaska was divided into two distinct legal regimes, one governed by state law and the other by federal law. Initially, the Alaska Supreme Court put its McDowell decision on hold. The court did so that the state would have time to amend its constitution or otherwise bring its program into compliance with ANILCA. But the legislature failed to act, and the Secretaries of Interior and Agriculture announced their intent to take over management of subsistence uses on federal public lands effective July 1st, 1990. Unfortunately, this was not helpful to Katie John. Initially, the federal government adopted regulations which extended federal management to game on federal lands, but excluded fishing in all navigable waters. NARF then filed suit on behalf of Katie John in federal court against the Secretary of the Interior, claiming that the Secretary had unlawfully restricted the construction of Anilka's Reach and that Congress intended to protect subsistence fishing activities as well as game on public lands. Katie John won that case in 1994, but the litigation did not end there and appeals took place. On May 7, 2001, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals reaffirmed this ruling that Title VIII's federal subsistence fisheries protections extend to all navigable waters in which the federal government owns reserved water rights. As a result of this ruling, the federal agencies then adopted final regulations that identify those waters in Alaska that fall within federal jurisdiction. Those final regulations are the subject of current litigation by the state of Alaska that argues that federal jurisdiction over Alaska waters is too expansive, while Katie John and other Native plaintiffs argue that the regulations are still too narrow. Katie John is now 99 years old. She's been fighting for her subsistence rights through litigation for over 30 years. But unfortunately, even if she succeeds in her litigation, the subsistence rights of many rural Alaska Natives will still go unprotected because the dual system of management that we have today is not working. As you know from your recent trip to Bethel, our Alaska Native people are not getting the fish they need to fulfill their subsistence needs. Title VIII of Anilka is a broken promise that needs to be fixed. We respectfully ask that you use your leadership position to not only hold hearings across the state to listen to the needs of our Native brothers and sisters, but that you exercise your leadership to take action to adopt legislation that would protect subsistence hunting and fishing rights on state and federal lands and waters. And I would like to leave you with this picture of Kitty John and her granddaughter and great-granddaughter as a token of the Otna people's appreciation for leadership. Thank you very much.
So on our original agenda, we had testimony until 7:30. One more. Okay. And I have one hand from the audience.
I am on that list, though.
Pardon?
I think I'm on the list.
I'm on the list.
Okay. Okay, since the people on the list have provided us with written testimony, we're going to take one person from the audience right now. So, from the list, I'm going to go with Suzanne right now.
Thank you for this opportunity. I'm Suzanne McCarthy, and I've been in this area for 30 years and have raised my family here. I've lived and worked with all of these folks, and as you know, I've been on the Subsistence Resource Commission for Wrangell St. Elias for 16 years. And subsistence, as you know, is an extremely important activity, topic, and it's, like everyone has said, it's not an activity, it's a lifestyle. This was recognized in Anilka. We know, we all have read the regs, we know that Anilka recognized this was a special feature in rural Alaska, and it was written into law. Copper Basin region, like many, many places in rural Alaska, right now is in crises. The cost to live here, to send our kids to school, to participate, to drive to work every day in these vast regions, the cost of heating homes, the cost of everything in rural Alaska is incredible. Our people are leaving this area, our schools are in crises, population is leaving. My kids can't get jobs here, they have to leave. Our children and our grandchildren, and as Linda said, our grandchildren's grandchildren need to know how to live in rural Alaska. Rural Alaska is going through a crisis that hopefully is a passing phase. Alaska is one that is We have our ups, we have our downs, and we always seem to be extreme. Right now, it's tough to live in rural Alaska. Subsistence is absolutely critical if we're going to help save our communities and our villages and give a place and a lifestyle for our grandchildren and our grandchildren's grandchildren to come back here. Federal regulations in our national parks and preserves recognize this originally as they have grown and evolved and developed regulations, have moved forward. 20 years ago, the worry was, oh my gosh, everybody's going to move to rural Alaska in these wonderful communities and overrun our national parks and kill all the animals and take all our fish, and it's going to be overrun. People are going to collect firewood and our forests are going to be clear cut. That didn't happen. We had recession, we had all kinds of things happen. Rural Alaska is now on the other extreme. We're worried that our children and our grandchildren are not going to be able to learn activities, to learn to be one with our region. And when they come to return, they're not going to know how to live in this place. We need to be able to teach them. We need to look at the federal regulations on our lands that are so restrictive now, that have become restrictive over 20 years. As Dawn said, we're looking at chainsaws and looking at chainsaw engines and augers to ice fish and say, we're not sure those are permissible in Anilka because it doesn't clearly say that. It says you can collect firewood. We think that means you go out there and collect dead wood off the ground to heat your home. We need to look at it. We need to have... rural Alaska needs help. Subsistence is the critical lifeblood to our existence, protecting the culture, protecting what rural Alaska means. Everyone cannot live in the city. We need to teach our children, and we need a lifeblood to keep our rural communities going. Thank you for your help. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. And I do remind anyone that didn't have a chance to testify or to offer testimony tonight, please submit your comments in writing.
I'd like to thank those of you who rose to speak tonight with a passion. I think we heard that from each and every one of you. An ability to articulate a concern. I think the history that has been shared here tonight is incredibly important, again, as we build this record. Most of the folks that I work with back in Washington, D.C., well, they may have some notion or concept of going out and providing for your family, either through hunting or through planting, through family farms. There is a concept, and they think that they know and understand what Alaska faces when we're talking about subsistence and providing for families in the customary and traditional way. I think it's important that they hear some of what you have shared tonight, because it is different. And the word extreme has been used. We need to recognize that in our state, where you face issues of extraordinarily high costs, whether it's to heat your home, to fuel your vehicles, to move about, the cost of living, the cost of feeding your family if you were to go to a grocery store. Down in the lower 48, you've got a lot of options to provide for your family when it comes to a food source. Out in Alaska, out in this huge land, our options are different. And so today and this evening, the opportunity that you have taken to share some of what it means to provide for your families and provide that resource that is necessary, that was important. But what was equally important was to hear how the food that nourishes the body is also something that is part of who you are. It defines you. It speaks to the spirit. And that's an intangible that is oftentimes difficult to translate to folks who have not stood in your shoes, have not walked where you and your ancestors have walked, and where you hope that your children and your grandchildren and your grandchildren's children will be able to walk. So I hear the request for help. I hear the suggestions that many of you have offered. I hear very clearly the concern that the dual management that we are operating under is not what, at least those of you who have risen to express, feel is working. And I think part of what we're trying to establish here is to understand how it's not working and how we might be able to address it. I want to thank those not only who are here tonight from the Otna region, but to those who came from the Yukon Flats area, from the Copper River Delta area. There may be others of you who are also here to listen on behalf of people within your region, and I thank you for that as well. I do apologize that we have not been able to hear from everybody who wished to speak. I will again repeat the invitation to provide your comments to us, whether it's put it in the mail with a hard copy, if you will, or submit it to my website at murkowski.senate.gov. This will be made available to you, and this record that we are creating will be left open for a period of time as we gather more comments from people around the state. So if you're talking to your friends, your family, and you hear a story that you feel that the people in Washington, D.C. need to hear, I would ask you to continue to share that with us. These are important conversations. It's important for people to know and understand, again, who we are and how we are dealing with a level of regulation and management and complication, is what I heard from so many of you. In an effort to feed your families, your life has become far more complicated than I think many can appreciate. So again, thank you for what you have given tonight. Thank you for representing so many other voices who have not been able to speak. And I appreciate your leadership. Know that I will take back with me to Washington your concerns, your care, and Roy, I appreciate that you send your love. That means a lot to me too. So thank you for giving me this time this evening and the opportunity to be with you tonight. Michelle, thank you for leading us off with words that were very strong, very well articulated. I appreciate your leadership within the Otna region as well. So thank you very, very much. And with that, we will conclude our listening session, and we'll await further comments. So thank you.